Grand Seiko makes some of the most amazing, insane luxury watches on the planet. When it comes to the materials used and just the different creative designs that they come out with, and especially the finishing, Grand Seiko can absolutely put the big boys like Rolex to shame. A few years back, they came out with the SBGK004, which was an absolutely beautiful and amazing timepiece on a lot of different levels, but one thing that was very unique about it is that it featured a Japanese lacquer Urushi dial. This is a watch dial that requires a master craftsman to create. It needs to be handmade, and it just has an absolutely stunning finish to it. But that watch from Grand Seiko retails for around $30,000. But on the opposite end of the Seiko catalog, we find a watch in the Presage series that features a very similar handmade Urushi Japanese lacquer dial. And that one you can pick up still today for around $750. It's actually been around for a while, and I finally got around to picking one up. Today we're checking out the SARX029. Hey guys, welcome back to Just the Watch. My name's Dave, I live in Japan, and I love to collect affordable watches. And today we're taking a look at a very Japanese watch. It comes from Seiko, which is Japan's premier watchmaker, and it has a stunning jet black Urushi dial. Now on this channel, I focus on budget watches. If you're building a budget watch collection and typically can't afford to spend more than a couple $100s on a watch, you can still get your hand on some amazing watches. And you can build a pretty good little collection in that affordable price range. But every now and then I like to branch into a category that I like to call the affordable grail. What most people think of when they think of a grail watch are luxury watches that cost thousands or tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars. But if you're a budget watch collector like I am, something like that is completely unattainable. But a watch between $700 and $1,000? That's the kind of thing that you might be able to save up for and actually get your hands on someday. But to call something an affordable grail, I think means more than just it being in a certain price tier. You want a watch that gives you a taste of what those crazy luxury watches give you. This watch is the epitome of an affordable grail. It has something totally unique that almost no other watch has in its Urushi dial, which is handmade by Japanese artisans. It's made by a historic watch brand in Seiko that produces some of the most amazing watches in the entire world. And while to see some of Seiko's best work, you need to go up into their Grand Seiko line and spend tens of thousands of dollars, this watch gives you a taste of what they're capable of at a fraction of the cost. And this watch is more than just a pretty dial. Every element supports a single overall design philosophy that just comes together in a beautiful way. From the stunning gold handset to the sharply printed Roman numerals to the beautiful genuine crocodile leather strap that they've paired with it. These are all things that you normally don't find outside of luxury watches that cost 2 or 3 times as much as this watch. But this isn't a luxury watch, and so obviously there are some areas that are pretty normal or average for this price range. For example, it features Seiko's 6R15 movement, which is kind of their mid-range movement that unfortunately only beats at 21,600 vibrations per hour. So you're not going to get that ultra smooth sweeping second hand that you would get on a movement with a higher beat rate. And while the finishing is very good, it's certainly not up to the same standard that you would find in luxury watches. But overall, Seiko really hasn't cut any corners at all here. You're still getting a domed sapphire crystal, a signed crown, and 100 meters of water resistance. This is a watch that I've really fallen in love with, in part because there's not really any major flaws to it. It's certainly not perfect, and there's a few little nitpicks that I have, but even those haven't really detracted from the enjoyment of owning and wearing this watch. Now, this SARX029 is actually an older model watch from Seiko. It came out back in 2015, and I don't think it's really in production anymore. But at the time of this review, it is still pretty readily available. This is a JDM watch, but it is for sale on a lot of different sites. I even saw a listing on Amazon US. You can get it from Discovery Japan Mall, Nomon. I think I saw it on Sakura Watches as well. Prices tend to fluctuate, but you can find it pretty easily for around $750. I actually found one available on Amazon Japan for around $500 here, and that's where I bought mine. And one of the reasons I picked it up is because I feel like this is one that's probably not going to be around at this price for much longer. Just earlier this year, Seiko released another watch in the Presage series with an Urushi dial, but that one's retailing for closer to $3,000. So my guess is once these SARX029s are gone, you're probably not going to find anything from Seiko at a comparable price pretty much ever again. If you're watching this video a few months or years from now, you might find that this watch is no longer available or that the price is a lot higher than $750. So if you want to be aware of some of these deals when they come up and when I find them, definitely encourage you to subscribe to the channel so you'll get notifications and you can see the video as soon as it comes out and have the best shot at picking these watches up. And while you're at it, why don't you check out my t-shirt store. I've got a couple of new designs, including this one with the Seiko Alpinist on it. Also available in hoodies. But back to the watch we're talking about today, we really need to look at this dial in detail because it really is something special. The dial on this watch is without a doubt the star of the show here. Now, Seiko watches can kind of be all over the place when it comes to quality, and some of their dials are better than others, but when they put their mind to it, I think they are absolutely the best dial maker in the entire world. And in the case of this Urushi dial, they've done something that is so pure to their Japanese roots and so cool, it really made this watch one I had to pick up. Urushi is a kind of Japanese lacquer. It's made out of a sap from a tree that grows in the country. And it's a very ancient art form here in Japan. One of the most common things you see it on is on these wooden bowls that they usually use for serving soup, but they also make plates and chopsticks, and it really has a beautiful and unique finish to it. And I'm particularly interested in this because I live in Iwate Prefecture, which historically has been one of the biggest producers of Urushi products. Each one of these dials are produced by an Urushi master craftsman. They're handmade by applying the Urushi lacquer to these dials, and the result is incredibly subtle but also very stunning. This is some of the deepest, inkiest, glossy black that I've ever seen on a dial. And because of the nature of Urushi and the fact that these are handmade dials, the surface is just a little bit uneven, which gives it very interesting reflections and light play. And yet again, it's just so incredibly subtle. It's definitely not something that's going to be noticeable most of the time. Again, most of the time it's just going to look like the most perfect black dial you've ever seen in your life. The markings on the dial are all printed with elegant Roman numerals at the hour markers and then a thin gold seconds track going all the way around the edge of the dial. The printing is incredibly sharp and crisp and also highly legible. And they've paired this up with just one of the most beautiful handsets that I've ever seen. The golden leaf-shaped hands have a perfect edge to them and a kind of powdered texture that gives it a matte look. And I'm just so impressed at how these hands and the markers are just always visible. I feel like it's very common on dress watches for hands and markers to get lost in the glossiness and reflections. That never happens here. This watch is just so easy to read, it's so easy to see the hands and the markers, and it maintains this legibility by somehow looking more classy and more elegant than you would find on like Dolphin hands and applied markers on a lot of other dress watches. And I think that long, slender second hand with the crescent moon counterbalance really helps to sell that. Finally, this watch also features a 3 o'clock date, which I'm 100% on board with. This one is very tastefully done with a gold border around it and a black color match date wheel. That cutout for the date actually gives the Urushi dial more opportunity to shine because it's around that cutout that you can kind of see the contours in the dial and the way that the Urushi pooled and dried as it was hardening. And while the date would normally cut off the 3 o'clock index, Seiko has cleverly created just a shorter Roman numeral 3 to put there, which just feels like the perfect choice. Seiko has put this dial into a fantastic case with elegant lugs that are finished with a beautiful brushing on top and polished beveled edges that give them a little bit of a twisted look. The sides of the case are polished with a slight bulge to them. It's a case design that is both substantial and beautiful. Finally, the watch features a fairly large crown that makes it very easy to wind the watch and also to set the time. Visually, it does look maybe a little bit large for the watch, and I think maybe a different shape would have helped. Perhaps if they've gone with more of a diamond or onion-shaped crown rather than the sort of standard cylinder that they did here, it would have looked a little bit more appropriate to the style of this watch. But that's a fairly minor thing, and it's also really nice to see Seiko put a signed crown on this model. Finally, as a kind of icing on the cake, Seiko has gone ahead and topped this off with a sapphire crystal and 100 meters of water resistance. So even though this has the size and the look of a dress watch, it has the capabilities of a sports watch. It's not the kind of watch I would really think of to take to the beach or to go snorkeling, but it certainly gives you some extra peace of mind knowing that this is not some fragile, dainty dress watch. But not only is this watch absolutely beautiful, it's also highly functional and very wearable. On paper, the SARX029 might seem a little bit large for a dress watch. However, its elegant and understated design really help it to pull off this form factor without things looking like they're getting out of proportion. The result is an absolutely beautiful watch with a lot of wrist presence. It's a watch that makes its presence known without screaming for attention. And this watch is special, and I think that's something that you want out of it. This watch has a very reasonable 47mm lug to lug, which means it's going to wear well on a wide variety of wrists. For people with smaller wrists, it may look a little large for a dress watch, but I think you can still pull it off, and I think it'll look great in a suit for business purposes or for a night out on the town. And if you have medium to large size wrists like I do, this watch is going to wear perfect for any situation. Overall, I think Seiko really nailed the proportions on this watch. And while I always like to see dress watches down around 10mm, the beautiful case design on this watch never made its 12mm thickness feel out of place. And to make this watch wear even better, Seiko paired it up with a genuine crocodile leather strap. And this is something I almost couldn't believe at a watch in this price range. Almost all the crocodile straps you're going to find in this price range are going to be cow leather that has been embossed to look like crocodile leather. But Seiko actually paired this up with exotic crocodile leather, which has a softer, more supple and comfortable feel than embossed cow leather does. And this strap is just extremely pliable and comfortable to wear. It has just a beautiful finish and a great feel in the hand. And the strap is finished beautifully with a touch of gold accent stitching near the lugs and a beautiful deployant clasp that looks great, allows you to get the watch on and off your wrist a little bit easier, and also should extend the life of the leather. Now, one issue that I did notice with this strap is that it looks like the leather is a little bit on the dry side, and I assume that that's likely because this is a new old stock watch. The watch was probably produced back in 2015, which means that the delicate crocodile leather likely has been drying out a little bit in the box over the last 7 years. And with crocodile leather being a little bit more fragile than good cow leather, I do have some concerns about how long this strap is going to last. But even with those downsides, I'm thrilled to see this beautiful of a strap paired up with this watch. It complements the watch beautifully, and everything comes together in this complete package that looks and feels great on the wrist. Under the hood, this watch features Seiko's 6R15D movement. It's a little bit of an older movement, but it's still a pretty darn good one. The 6R15D is one of Seiko's mid-level movements. It's since been replaced by the 6R35, so you won't find the 6R15 in any of Seiko's newer model watches. The main difference between this one and the newer 6R35 is that this one has a 50-hour power reserve, whereas the 6R35 has a 70-hour power reserve. But even still, the 6R15D is an upgrade over Seiko's 4R35 movement series. You're getting a longer power reserve at 50 hours. You're also getting better stated accuracy at between -15 seconds and plus 25 seconds per day. And this watch features Seiko's Sprawn 510 alloy mainspring. So the mainspring is a thin coil of metal that holds the power of the watch. That's the thing that gets wound when you wind the watch. By making it out of this special alloy, you're getting anti-magnetic properties and theoretically a longer lifespan than you would get out of the standard mainspring material that's in the 4R35 series. So nothing really revolutionary here, but it is really cool to see an upgraded movement. If you are building an affordable watch collection, you likely have a ton of watches that have a Seiko NH35 movement inside of it. This one's going to give you just as much reliability as that, along with a few technical upgrades. Now, as much as I love this watch, it's not quite perfect. So to wrap this up, we need to talk about some areas that could be improved. So my list of cons for this watch aren't really so much problems as just kind of a wish list of things I would have liked to have seen done. And what I mean by that, these are all things that you kind of expect at this price range. As much as this watch looks like it could be a Grand Seiko watch, it's not. And when you're spending this kind of money, you just can't have everything. Perhaps what I most would have liked to have seen would have been a movement with a higher beat rate. The second hand on this watch is absolutely gorgeous, and I think it would have looked even better with a smoother sweep. At 12mm, I think this watch is a little bit thick for a dress watch, but part of that thickness is probably coming from the 100 meters of water resistance and the exhibition caseback. Would I have preferred a 10.5mm watch with a solid caseback and only 50 meters of water resistance? I don't really know, actually, but those are the kind of trade-offs I think you have to get into when you're talking about case thickness here. Finally, I think a little bit more elegant crown would have suited the design better, and I'm slightly concerned about picking up scratches on the polished surfaces. This watch doesn't feature any hardening treatment or anti-scratch coating, so it is going to pick up scratches as you wear it. But like I said early on, all of these kind of nitpicks, while they are slightly annoying, don't really detract at all from the enjoyment of wearing this watch. There's so much that I love about it, so much that's unique and unlike any other watch that I have in my collection, that I hardly notice any of those things when I have it on the wrist. I'm pretty sure this is going to be serving as my primary dress watch from here on out. But let me know what you guys think about it. Chime in down below with your comments, and while you're at it, let me know what your affordable grail is. Anyways, good luck hunting those down. That's going to wrap up for today. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.